Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm Linda. I work at the library, and I am very pleased to welcome Anat Shmulovich, author of Where the Night Train Ends, How I Survived Ukraine, Russia, and Loss of the Man I Loved. Also, longtime New Providence resident, concert pianist, and teacher. Welcome.
Thank you.
Want to introduce your editor?
Yes. I would like to introduce my dear editor, friend Dubrow, who not only edited but helped me along the way. She advised me, and I listened to her advice.
So few people do. It's amazing. As I said, my name is Fran Dubrow, and I was the editor of the book. And it's my job, I guess, today just to kind of give you an overview. You can ask any questions before, during, after. I'll try not to give any spoilers, although it's very difficult, when you lead a life. And here she stands, so you know she's living, right? She's alive, et cetera, et cetera. The book, in my view, takes two paths. It's Anat's path and her father's path. And they have goals, very specific goals. Anat's father made a strategic error, I felt a little bit, when, oh, okay, can anybody not hear me? I'm usually very loud. Okay, it's okay.
Not
All right.
loud enough.
Okay, thank you.
Here we go.
When at the age of 13, he decided to take her to the capital, Russia, Moscow, to enjoy culture, to be involved in culture. And when she returned, she was a different person. She decided that Herlivka is a backwater town here. You can see it, it's very industrial, and Russia has these towns that are dedicated to certain things. So this is it's a mining town, very industrial. The beautiful description in the book describes it as gray, steel gray, all kinds of different gray. And having seen what Moscow was like, the dance, the music, the theater, she was convinced that she doesn't belong in this place. Okay. And so began a journey of trying to persuade her family, her mother, her father, both doctors, her grandfather also a doctor, to allow her to go. And that's an interesting journey that I do not want to tell you about. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it opens up the book and you'll see how she did get to Moscow. And her goal was to be a musician, a concert musician, and a very special school, the Gnesin school. Similar, I guess, to our Juilliard, except it was high school. Was there for her, and the audition was going to be difficult. As a Jew, she had to be twice as good as everybody else. And so you see her sacrifices, her struggles, her determination, her grit, her patience, her rebelliousness. We have a rebel here, and you'll enjoy that section of the book. As she does go to Gnesin school, she eventually meets a man that is on this cover, The Loss of the Man I Loved. And he's a very famous man who himself has a memoir. His name is Anat Shmulovich, 10 years in a Russian prison because he became a refusenik, which Anat's father was basically the inventor of in a lot of ways. And so I did not mention what his goal was, but his goal was to escape the Soviet regime. And the effects of the Soviet regime, the daily horrors of the Soviet regime are evident in this memoir. So this memoir becomes kind of a history book, a political book, a book of a love story, a family book. Becomes all of that all at once. I don't want to say anymore, just to tell you that you'll read it and you'll think, I wonder if it's going to be a movie or TV or something, but it's the life of Anat. Thank you.
Would you like to begin by telling us, this book is written in English. How many languages do you speak?
4.
4. And what are they?
English, Russian, Hebrew, Ukrainian.
That's 3 more than most Americans speak.
4 more.
Very good, very good. 4 more. So can you tell us, many people say, oh, I'm going to write a book someday. My life is so fascinating. I should write a book. Few people do, let alone in their 4th language. So can you tell us a little bit about the process? Did you just wake up one morning and say, I am going to write my memoir?
Okay, I will address that. But first, I want to pay tribute to the Providence Library. I have lived in this town for over 40 years. My kids checked out books from this library for decades. I can truly say that they grew up in this library. Actually, I can say I grew up in this library in terms of English language. I came to this country on December 4th, 1981, with 2 kids, young children, 5 years old and 5 months old, and with 0 English. When my kids were at
Hold that
school,
close to your mouth, I can't hear it at all.
when my kids were at school and at nursery school, in the beginning, I read their books, children books. With time, I graduated from elementary school to middle school, high school, and finally to adults books. And I came full circle. Now my book is in this library. People come to this country to feel the American dream. My American dream was to master the language and to learn the culture of my new country. The Providence Library helped me to realize my American dream. Thank you. I also want to mention 2 things. Yeah, because I speak 4 languages, I ask you please to forgive me if I will mispronounce something or just such things.
I don't think anyone will mind.
Thank you. Yes, and also I want to say, I am not Russian and I'm not Ukrainian. I don't consider myself none of it. If my parents' wishes would be granted, they would leave, they would emigrate from Russia before I was born. And I would be born in a free world. These things I wanted to say before we start.
Okay. Okay, so the clear. So how did you get the idea that you wanted to write a book?
Right.
Was it something that you always had, that you had planned for years, or all of a sudden one day, I'm going to write my book?
Right. I was very close with my parents and my grandparents, and they all told me stories. And I was thinking even a long time ago that maybe I should really put it on paper. I was looking for a book which would describe life in Russia after Stalin. Not in terms of politics, but in terms of how people lived after Stalin's death in 1953. And I found none. My parents' generation were already getting old, and by now, no one is living. Their stories, their experiences died with them because nothing was put on paper.
Why do you think none of them wrote their stories down?
they were not about writing, they were all the medical professionals. And
Maybe too busy surviving to
through
write.
this is surviving in Russia, and then when we left, also we had to, my parents had to start from nothing. So my parents' generation was getting older, as I said. Now, my generation, who grew up in 50s and 60s, are now getting old, they're in their 70s. And my parents, my grandparents experience, if I would not put it on paper, who would? So it would die with me if I would not put it on paper. So I decided to put it on paper.
About how long did it take you to write your book?
I started, I wanted to start in a symbolic day. And I started on Memorial Day of 2014. So now I will always remember when I started the book, and Memorial Day, it was a good day for me. Turn out, I made the right decision. When I sent the book, the manuscript for Library of Congress for registration, the librarian requested me to notify her when the book will come out, and because she wanted to add it to the Russian history section.
Okay.
And I received the same request from Israel National Library.
Oh, so this book is in the Israeli National Library also.
And in Library of Congress.
Right, right.
Yes. Right. So in the beginning, I just wanted to write the experiences of life after study. And my grandparents, my parents, and my stories. Then I added 3 chapters about my piano studies in Moscow, also about Russian piano school, Russian teaching method, and my own teaching philosophy.
You say something there about the Russian piano teaching method, and it's not a positive.
No, there are two things, right? They are very professional. They just don't deliver it the right way, I would say, right? They're not nice to their students, but the idea, most great pianists of previous century are either Russians or were taught by Russians. So they do something right. What I did, I decided a priori that I will not teach the same method they do. I took the chord and I wrapped it in peace for few rapidly.
Now, you have some students here today,
Yes,
and raise your hand if you're a student? Okay, and would you agree? That's how, and it was still effective,
Yes.
her method?
Absolutely.
So as your editor said, it was growing up, it was gray, it was pretty grim.
Right.
But you have some very funny stories, funny and sort of dark humor. Would you like to read the passage about the milk?
yes.
Which was one of my
This was
favorites.
already in Moscow.
This was in Moscow already,
Yeah, this was
okay.
in Moscow. So when I turned 15, my mother took me on a train to Moscow because I wanted to study in the.
Do you want to maybe hold, while you're reading, hold the microphone?
Yes. So when I was accepted to Gnesim College, in the beginning, I lived in an apartment. I rented a room in an apartment. I was 15, and it was very far from my school. It took me an hour and a half each way. Right. So I was looking. I took this place as a trampoline to something better, something closer.
A trampoline to something,
Yes.
okay.
Right. But meanwhile, okay, so in my first address,
Can you hold the microphone?
in my first, oh,
That's not yet.
yeah. One winter day, I found a flyer in the foyer of my building, which read, every Saturday morning, a cistern with fresh milk will be delivered to your neighborhood. I was happy to learn that the cistern would be delivered right in front of my building. The first Saturday morning, when it was still dark outside, a long queue of residents formed under our window. I was going to join them. People in the queue were chatting, it was weekend, and the mood was good. Finally, the cistern arrived with a saleswoman in a white robe, and the first customer held out the empty container. First, milk had to be poured into a container with marks on it for 1.5, or 2 liters, and then transferred to the customer's container. The saleswoman opened the faucet, but the milk would not come out. The queue was perplexed. The chatting stopped. Confused, people were looking at each other in hopes of finding the answer. But the milk was not coming out, period. Is there milk in the cistern? Asked the man and knocked on the cistern with his knuckles. It sounds like the cistern is full. Yes, exclaimed the saleswoman. Then what is the problem? Asked the woman. Silence. No one was talking. Then a voice called out. The milk must be frozen. Collective gasp. Yes. Then it, someone shouted, an angry woman's voice. And what should I do now? Milk myself? I have to feed my kids. The saleswoman shrugged with disappointment. Another woman spoke as if she was talking to herself. I have been staying here since 7 in the morning. If I had spent all this time going to the city, I would be back by now with milk and everything else. Saddened and frustrated, people silently whispered. At the same time, there were chains of stores that served only the guards, the Communist Party elite, and the KGB inner circle. These stores were spread all around the country and were hidden from the little guy. Everyone knew of their existence, but not on their locations. These stores had everything your heart could desire: chicken and meat, canned goods, fish, meat, etc., nuts and dried fruit galore. There were similar stores for clothing. At Gnesim College, we had an English teacher who wore the most beautiful and elegant clothes by any standard. Everyone knew she was the wife of a high-ranking party apparatchik.
And we get upset if we go to the store and there's no organic 2% milk. I just want milk. You talk a lot about your father, in the book and the big influence he had on you, but he did not want you to go
Right.
to school in Moscow, and yet you did. So tell us, was
My
he,
father got more than he bargained for. He raised me independent, and I did what I decided I was thinking is right. Even I was very young. He had plans. My grandfather paternal was head of ophthalmology department in medical school. Both my parents were ophthalmologists. So he wanted me to become an ophthalmologist also.
naturally?
But yeah, I was not there. And he even took me to the operating room once to show me what is it exactly. And I was talkative before.
So he took you in to see operating on somebody's eye.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's intense, yeah.
Yes.
And
So the nurse put robes on me, and I was attentive until he inserted a scalpel in the eye. When I saw that, all my excitement was gone. And I started crying right there. And the nurse,
how old were you at that time?
maybe 13,
Wow.
right? And the nurse took me out. Then at home, I heard my mother and my father were talking. And she said, she was telling him, listen, she doesn't have to do surgeries. She can be pediatrician, she can be radiologist. I don't like blood either. And she is a doctor. I don't like blood either. And he said, I know, she has your genes.
So it was your mother who
Right.
saw you onto that first train
Yes.
to go to college, to school, to the music school.
Not to the music school, first to the orphanage. I
Okay,
spent-
explain why an orphanage.
Because even I was a good student in my town, I realized that the level of kids who would get to Gnesin College is higher than my level, at least in theory, harmony, solfege. So
That's one, can you explain what solfege is? Because I had never heard that. I don't know piano.
okay, solfege is singing with notes, melodies, but not with the English letter names, but do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. And by singing, it develops good ear
Okay.
and sense of it. Also, part of solfege was taking music dictation. So the teacher would play a melody on the piano. You are not seeing his hands. You were supposed to notate the melody.
Writing down
Yes,
the notes.
right.
Uh-huh.
So the teacher will say, give you a hint, one of two. Either he will tell you the scale in which this melody is written, or he may tell you the first note, and then you figure out the scale is. This is the most difficult. Also during the examination, you take this dictation, and this is the most difficult part.
Students, can you do this?
I wouldn't say to that skill level, certainly not.
So you're on your way to the orphanage
Right.
in Moscow.
So in order to take all these private lessons, I had to stay someplace. And my mother found an orphanage where director was ready to take me in. So this orphanage was full of kids from problematic families. For example, that's why they were in the orphanage.
Right.
Because their parents couldn't keep them at home. Or it may be one parent that could not afford to keep the child at home, or both parents would be, one would be institutionalized, one would be jailed, but all these kids went home for the weekend. I was alone in the whole building on weekend, and I managed my own affairs. And before the management left, they shut lights. So I was moving in the evening in total darkness. I was using a flashlight, and
But you would go out at night, right? To
I would-
concerts and,
so that was during the week, and also on the to get into the building, there was a guard. So on weekend it was scary. That guard was drunk, smelly drunk. He smelled vodka, tobacco, and unbrushed teeth. Right. And also, he tried to make eye contact with me, which I tried to avoid this eye contact because I couldn't understand what exactly that means. I was 15. Then I went to second floor where was my bedroom and another total of 8 girls. Like if you remember the movie Annie, the number of
rows of
beds,
beds.
and on the other side too, and it is a space in the middle. But there were no keys, so I was so scared that he can come on the second floor, whatever he can do. But I was so happy on Monday that everybody who
Came back again. Did you ever find out what, so your mother saw you off at the train?
Yes.
Without telling your father, did you ever find out what happened when she went home? And
No, I asked her number of times, she didn't know.
but he eventually
I
accepted
can
it.
imagine his rage. Imagine his rage when she came back and said, "Luba is on a train to Moscow." Imagine.
That brings me
But
to,
she, she was a strong woman. She took it.
she must have,
She thought that it is important for me, but I came back victorious because I was accepted. So that was for him to reestablish good relationship with me. And the other reason, after I left, suddenly my father started getting much more attention from my mother.
because you were only child.
Yes,
Mhm.
and he gave me attention. Suddenly he started getting more attention, and he liked
You like that?
it.
No, you were Luba at the time, and now you are Anat. Explain how that happened.
When we came to Israel, my father wanted to change the name, the family name, which was Yershkovich. And he found a name Yaron. Yaron, this is typical common Israeli name, and he also changed his first name from Anatoly to Naftali. And I changed my name, Luba, the full name Lubov. Every lecture, one in Academy of Music, a teacher was reading the names of students and in the present of himself. So he came to my name, and instead of Lubov, he said, Yershkovich Lubov. How does it sound? Lubov. It sounds like baobab. But I decided I have to get rid of that one, and I choose name Anat. So I had such a nice name, Anat Yaron. And then I married Shmulovich.
Yes. Would you like to read the passage? There was a very important piano competition in Moscow, but you couldn't get a ticket. So most people would just say, I cannot go to that piano competition, but you didn't accept that.
Many kids didn't accept. Okay. In June of 1917, the fourth Tchaikovsky competition took place as usual in the Great Hall of the Moscow Conservatory. I wanted to hear the piano rounds of the competition. There were no tickets available for the little guy, only for VIPs. But I had a plan. I bought a ticket to the cello round, which was held in the same morning, at the same day as the piano round. My plan was to hide in the bathroom after the cello round and wait until the piano round. At 3:30, I would emerge from the bathroom and enter the great hall. All the seats would be taken, so I would stand in one of the aisles. My plan almost worked. As I waited in my stall, a voice from next stall asked me, "Hey, you have been in that stall for a long time. Do you know what is about to happen?" What? Would someone break the door and chase me out? No, the cleaning lady is going to come and use her mop to throw dirty water over the top of each stall. When I heard that, I ran out of the bathroom at once. That day, I didn't attend the piano round, but I devised a plan. I bought a ticket for the cello round for the next morning, but this time I brought a large plastic cape that covered me from head to toe. I sat for a long time in this cape in the stall, and the cleaning lady did indeed come and pour dirty water over the top of each stall. Also, my cape was dirty. Inside it, I was preserved. At 3:30, I left the bathroom, entered the great hall, and spent the rest of the evening listening to the piano competition. On the days I couldn't get a ticket, I repeated my trick. Then something else. Usually, when a great international artist came to Moscow, the tickets to his performances were sold to VIPs. And only the rich could afford to buy a ticket from a speculator. So how could we, poor students, get in? Since we were creative, we had several options. We could enter the conservatory during the day, practice in one of the practice rooms, and later sneak into the great hall. Or we could bribe the guy at the back door. Or we could enter with a team of ticket holders trying to hide behind larger and taller men. If none of these options looked appealing, we would mount a bridge. Before the performance, the entrance to the great hall was surrounded by police. But that didn't sway us. One of our idols was about to play, and emotions ran high. Students would form a tight line right in front of the police and wait. About 15 minutes before the performance, students would start pushing and kept pushing against the officers. We would breach the police line and run up the stairs towards the great hall. It was a vicious, violent run. If one fell on those stairs, they would risk being run over and killed. If one accidentally dropped their pocketbook, they wouldn't find it. Everyone was in danger of being picked up. When we reached the great hall just minutes before performance, we would stand in the aisles. But who cared? Standing in the back door of the great hall and watching musicians coming into the building, I could classify them. The one with the down mittens was a pianist, a soloist. The one with gloves, ones with gloves were the string players. The ones with no gloves were the wind players. And if I saw someone with a thick wool scarf around their neck, they must be a singer.
Now, this competition, which is a very major competition, Jewish musicians could enter, but it was understood that they could not win, correct?
Right, right. You know, on the first piano competition, I believe in 1956, there was a Jewish pianist, Vladimir Ashkenazi, who won the first prize. He married an Irish young pianist who also studied in Moscow Conservatory. And one time during the concerts in London, he defected. So after that, Jewish pianists were not supposed to win the first prize, only if there was no one else. Right.
Now, when I was reading this, I pictured when you were in Horlivka as sort of it's in black and white. When you got to Moscow, a little less black and white, but then at one point your family moves to Vilnius. And that, it seemed to me, now we have some color. Explain how you got there and
Actually, Moscow has a color. This is such a capital for arts, unparalleled. So my life started there. And there were 3 times a week on average, I attended performance, ballets, operas, instrumental concerts, symphonic concerts. And they also have rich drama tradition. Stanislavski and Raedisch, because there were people who established Russian acting school, which was based on the idea was that the actor has entered the character so deeply that he forgets that he is not that character.
and then explain why the family moved to Vilnius. If there was a specific reason.
Yes, because my father, as far as I remember, wanted to emigrate from Russia. And he was looking where is it possible. So first he heard in Odessa, people were talking that from Georgia, people can emigrate.
And Georgia is way southeast.
By the way, I didn't show Horlivka. So this is Horlivka. This is the up to age 15. This is Donetsk, about half-hour by car. And this is the Mariupol. This is on Sea of Azov. This is the only fighting. Okay, so what was your question, please?
So why did you go to Vilnius? Yeah.
Right. So he bought a ticket to Kutaisi, a town in Georgia, and went right away to the synagogue there. To the synagogue there, and told the elders, it was a weekday, but few elders were there. And he told them that he is Anatoly Yerkovich. He wants to, he could bring the family to Kutaisi and apply to exit visa. From Georgia. Right, from Georgia. Then the elders told them, not a good idea.
And these are the elders of what? Of where?
Synagogue.
Okay, so at the synagogue or advising.
Synagogue. Right. He said that he wants to blend and he doesn't want to be visible. Just to apply quietly to visa, to exit visa, and maybe he would have success. They told him, listen, you would not have success. You will not be able to blend. Look at yourself. You're redhead. How about your wife? Yeah, my wife is also fair. We are all dark-skinned people here. You will be here like a white crow. So he went there to Odessa. But next, the year after, someone told him in Odessa again, when we had our yearly vacation there.
And Odessa is on the Black Sea?
Yes, so going down here. Right. Someone told him that from Baltic republics, some people succeeded to get exit visa. So he takes buys the ticket and goes to Riga, which is the capital of Latvia. And again, goes to local synagogue. And they told him there that there are too many doctors there. You better go look in Vilnius. He didn't go to Vilnius. He had a friend in Vilnius, and he asked this friend to publish an ad in the paper that this is a family in Ukraine wants to exchange apartment, and he didn't specify what kind of apartment, which area, doesn't matter. Whatever apartment he will take. And really, we had 3 rooms, large rooms apartment, and we received 2 tiny rooms in Vilnius. But it was a miracle that a family wanted to exchange apartment from Vilnius to Raedisch. Why? There was Ukrainian food. So he wanted to drink vodka with his Ukrainian buddies. And he didn't have these buddies in Vilnius. So he decided, I'm taking the family to go back to Ukraine. And but he sent his wife to see what is the town like. And my father timed her visit to the time in August, where it was a high season of fruits and vegetables. So he took her to the market, and she saw that a little container, like a glass of black cherries, cost in Ukraine, cost in Vilnius. In Ukraine, it cost like a ruble. No. A bucket of black cherries in Ukraine cost the same like a small glass in Vilnius. You understand? Because Ukraine has very fertile soil. So when she saw that, she was impressed. Now, looking back, I'm thinking, was this woman blind? Didn't she see that meat sections in stores are empty? Fish sections didn't exist at all. And clothing stores were empty because whatever was there was not wearable.
Not wearable.
Yeah, not wearable. So we received the letter from them that they're going to to exchange, and actually my father was a head of the area ophthalmologist. He knew he will not have any he would not be able to operate anymore. He took work in a suburban outpatient hospital. And my mother took worked in also outpatient in Vilnius. And that was okay because it fulfilled our goal. We had a goal. I was transferred from Moscow to Vilnius. Yeah.
And there, the Jewish community was a little more open. and-
Much more, totally. You know, Ukraine was under Soviet regime from 1970. Lithuania from 1940. So they still remember the days of freedom. It was different world. Yes. In terms of food, it was also so much better. And my mother stopped waking up at 5 and going to the market before work. Whatever was available in the store was good enough.
Would you like to open up to some questions?
Yes.
Does anybody have a question for Anat?
Yeah, first I'd like to commend Anat. I've known her not many years. This is a very well-written book. It's not easy to write a book at all, let alone a book that somebody wants to read, and a good book. But my question is, which I've asked others, but when you're trying to leave the country and you're trying to get this exit visa, you don't know if you're going to get that exit visa. So what is the thought process of you could be totally left in limbo for years or end up in jail for years?
Yes.
And how do you cope with that?
My family took chance. And we were refusing for 3 years, but there were people who were refusing for more years. Before we received negative answer, right? My father laid low. He didn't participate in any public event, nothing. He thought maybe he will be lucky.
Because
Then
he had been participating, he had been going to some meetings and.
just here, after we received negative answer, like if you would say that he was a quiet dog before, he became a mad dog. His goal was to make so much troubles to KGB that they would like to get rid of him. And it worked. Before, right before Nixon, President Nixon was supposed to come to Russia in 1972. Probably party leaders decided to get rid of troublemakers, and he was one of them. So we received in March the exit visa, and in April 24th, we already flew in.
So thank you, President Nixon.
Thanks to President Nixon, right?
It would have been bad press.
Right. It will be, and they didn't know what he will do then. It's better to get rid of him.
And did he then, your parents remain in Israel after
Yes.
they did? Mhm.
Yes.
You told a funny story about when you first got to Israel. You wanted to advertise for piano lessons.
Yes.
You want to tell? Yeah, tell that one.
Yeah. So when my first baby was 14 months, I decided to come back to teach. And I wrote an ad in Hebrew and went to my neighbor that she would check the ad. She looked at the ad and said, Anat, there are more mistakes than words. Then she thought for some time and said, but you know, I wouldn't change a thing with this ad. It looks authentic. People will believe you. You can't make it up. So I took this ad and put it on a board for ads in a kindergarten next to the ad of washing machine. And my ad worked. By the end of that week, I had 6 students. By the end of the year, from April to June, I had 19 students. All kindergartners, going to first grade, some of the older siblings, and all adorable kids. And then my husband said, one more student, I will divorce you. So that was the end, taking new students, but 19 students is good law.
Anybody else have questions? Yes?
Have you ever returned for a visit?
I never went to Russia. I never even looked at that direction. Say the truth. I would like to visit St. Petersburg, not Moscow. Moscow, became a modern city, modern architecture. I can see modern architecture in other places, right? But St. Petersburg, they didn't touch much, and it is still looks like Peter the Great started. And besides, they have the best, the richest museum in the world.
Is the Nessun Music School still up and running?
Yes,
University now, actually, right?
they,
More questions?
When you said your father made trouble, maybe it stated some specifics in the book, but how did he make trouble and not really get arrested?
he was arrested.
Oh, he was number of times.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
he was first time he was just taken and freed after interrogation. But then he continued. And for example, there was a group of people who decided to meet every night at the Central Communist Committee in Vilnius. Then KGB started thinking, what if Lithuanians will start also assembling? We didn't have right of assembling. So they took some people. One evening, number of KGB cars came, they dismissed everybody, and they took 11 people whom they thought are biggest terrorists. And out of these 11, they chose 3, my father and 2 other his friends, and then they took them to court. And interesting, it was 10 p.m., but the judge was there. He was not be there at 10 p.m. So the whole thing was set up. And they said that they are, these 3 people are going to jail. And then my father said, okay, we're going to jail. We start a hunger strike until you will let us out. And in 10 days, they let us out. But he didn't eat in 10 days, for 10 days.
And
I tried, yes. I tried, you know what, one day, I tried his diet. I didn't eat for 10 days. Only drink water, and I continued my teaching. Few mothers knew about my endeavor, endeavor terrified. But my students didn't know. Then 10 days ended, and my husband tells me, hey, now you can break your fast. I said, no, I want to see how long I will last.
You're still here.
And then he disappeared. Came back with a box of chocolate covered strawberries. And that's what the editing.
One detail a small detail regarding that, there was a newspaper man that Anat's father got in contact or was able to get in contact with. And this became an international event that everyone knew about these refused nicks and the starvation diets, etc. And there were protests in Paris, there are protests all over, actually.
So he was a good strategist, your father.
Most important, that he was fearless. He had
Determined.
determined, and also he had the nerves of steel. And he was not afraid. Very European. Very European. Yes.
Now, this book only brings us so far.
Yes.
Will there be a part 2? Israel and America, part of your life.
You know, what can you write if you have good life? But what maybe will be coming, I told you, I don't know if I told the audience that before I sent the book to my editor, I read it myself, and I saw that the book is not flowing well, because there are many going back in time, they go back again, and all this jumping around. It was choppy. Choppy. Then I started taking sections of the book out, and I brought it to condition that it flows well. But all these stories they exist. So I can, and it is about 25% at least of the book. So these stories, I can make a of short stories. That I can do.
Anybody have any more questions? Okay, we're gonna see if anybody in the Zoom at home has any questions. Not, I have one more question. While we're waiting, we do have the library copy is in, so if anybody wants to take it home tonight with their library card, they can do that. Any questions on the Zoom? You have a question? Okay.
How did you meet Anat Shmulovich?
I met accidentally. There was a New Year's celebration on the Red Square out of Providence, very central place. And I was there, and he was there. That's how we met.
And you said he did read a draft of this
Yes,
book.
I sent him last draft.
And we won't say, Kate, because we don't want to spoil it for those who haven't read it, why this is not by Anat Sharansky. Why this is by, so we'll let people discover that for themselves in here.
Yeah, I had to leave the country. I had to make a choice, you know. If I would stay, I'm sure that my mother would stay with me. I'm the only daughter, and we were very close. And my father had to leave because the Siberia was looming over him. So he would have to leave. And I had to decide. I didn't want to break the family. I want to, this is a good time to read just two phrases.
Not to mention the jokes at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, do you want to do one of them, either one of those
Yeah,
jokes in?
yeah. Okay. So the book, the name Where the Night Train Ends comes from the fact that the book starts and ends with dramatic scenes on the train. And that's how the type works. Right. Okay. As we neared Austria on the train the next morning, people were glued to their windows. No one wanted to miss the historic moment of crossing the border to freedom. Someone saw the distant border sign and exclaimed, "It's coming! Here it is!" Everyone on the train car held their breath. In less than a minute, the train crossed into Austria. There was a collective sigh of relief, and then an explosion of cheering, crying, laughing, and pounding of feet. Strangers embraced each other. Campaigns suddenly appeared seemingly out of thin air. After the initial awe, my papa took me aside. "You think we left Russia to save me from Gulag?" He asked. "Wrong. We left Russia to save your life. With your sharp tongue, in defiant nature, you inevitably would have ended up in Siberia." This is